brand new song we've never played once before in public. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and let us know what you think in the comments.
The world is changing, you feel it spinning faster. I heard you say we're heading for disaster in the end. Feels like we're caving in.
I think I wrote the lyrics of the song The Fight about my dad.
Not being nothing, we're all afraid things are blowing up and someone is to blame. Bet you could name some names, lock them all away, and drive away the hate by hating.
My dad raised our family in a strong religious tradition, and there were a lot of wonderful things about that I still take with me to this day. It was a feeling like they out there, non-believers, maybe Democrats, they were all sort of a part of a problem of worldliness, and they probably also involved in trying to bring about a one world government. And I took that in as a kid and thought that was probably true. And meanwhile, we were the good people, in church and doing what we were supposed to, being Republicans, honoring family values, that kind of thing. That was the worldview that I grew up in. What started to change that, I observed that church that I grew up in split over and over and over, and often over little things, like whether you could lift your hands during the service, or how you prayed, or how you took communion, or how often the church ought to take communion. Things that to me didn't seem like big issues, seemed like huge issues. And the community would split, and this family would no longer talk to this family. Each side said that they were right. They were honoring what was holy. They were honoring the tradition. They were honoring the text of the Bible and interpreting it correctly. They were saying, we have the truth, and that truth forces us to be separate. And I think even as a kid, I just thought, this isn't good news. They say you'll know the tree by its fruit, and that was bad fruit. If the community is always breaking, something about this isn't working. No matter how much you talk about holiness or love for God or love for others, if the community just keeps breaking, something's not working. So the song starts by saying the world is changing, you feel it spinning faster. I heard you saying we're heading for disaster, in the end we're caving in.
The world is changing, there might not be nothing. We're all afraid things are blowing up and someone is to blame.
The second half verse is saying the world is changing, there might not be enough, we're all afraid things are blowing up and someone is to blame. And I think that's pretty universal, that a lot of us feel like something isn't working. We all have fear that there's not going to be enough. We just have different ideas about where the threat is coming from, and we fight endlessly about that threat. And so it says you could name some names, you could try to lock them all away and maybe, beat the hate by hating, but it doesn't ever work, in my opinion, to do that.
Baby, show me your faith in all the ways you love the faces of the ones who disagree.
As I got into high school and college, I met all of those, non-believer Democrats, that I was supposed to stay away from. And they were, of course, loving people. And so, you go into a state of cognitive dissonance where what you learned growing up is no longer true. You have to take in this larger truth. There's a kind of a gray. It was black and white when you were young, and it becomes gray. So I think over time, the left became more my tribe. I looked at it and I thought, well, if we're talking about the ideals of Jesus, care for other people, trying to make change for those at the bottom, I'm seeing more of that on the left than I am on the right. So they became my group. But I think what happened is that I got a little disillusioned in the last couple of years, because we looked over at the right and we're like, those angry, violent, intolerant people. But often what happens is that we become angry, violent, and intolerant against the right. So then you get Dr. Martin Luther King saying, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dark cannot drive out dark. Only light can do that. Meaning how we make change then becomes as important as the kind of change that we want to make.
The world is changing, it's not that different. We do the same things we did for centuries when we get scared. point over there.
The only example to me of faith at this point that catches my attention is love. We spend a lot of time on Facebook or social media telling other people how they ought to live or do different things, and we conveniently avoid the one person we have any control over changing, which is ourselves. Instead, show me with your life something that works. Because just like the church arguing about what's the best way to serve communion, we see that happening in politics. Everyone has been arguing about sides and everyone has been arguing about facts forever. But the only way that I'm going to know whether what you're saying is really true and good is the fruit of it. Like, show me. I need to see based on the results, based on love, what way works. Because everything else is just talk. It's just one angry voice over here saying we have the truth and another angry voice over here saying we have the truth, and it just goes back and forth.
I think it's strange how we're never good at knowing the moment we change to be the same as what we fight against. Feels like self-defense, so we try again to drive away the hate by hating.
My hope is to touch on an intuition I think most of us have, that the more we pass the blame, we're going to just keep ramping up and destroying ourselves. And so there has to be some other way to approach things. And I think people know that intuitively. And I think that it takes facing ourselves. I think what I would say to a younger version of myself is that no crowd can tell you who you are. No one in an audience, no one person, no romantic interest, no one can give that thing. I remember there being a distinct shift in Ryanhood where in the beginning I just threw myself at every audience, just with every physical trick I could, every joke I could, just trying to get a response. With the question underneath her is, do you like me? Do I belong here? Am I good enough at this? And then realizing that I felt empty after shows. I was giving a whole lot and not getting something in return. They can't give us the thing that we need them to, that we have to find that in ourselves to begin with. The core has to be strong here. And then the shows started changing, and in many ways I still throw myself at an audience now, but it's with different intent. It's with passion, or it's with desire to engage. It's with a challenge for the audience, but it doesn't, at my best, have that same quality anymore of please tell me that I belong. That's a question I think that we all have to answer for ourselves. And that's what a song like The Fight is trying to talk about. It's sort of saying, unless we do this work here, unless we know our own story, unless we seek some kind of healing, unless we've done something to face what's here, we're gonna keep going out. And instead of sports teams and parents and friend groups, it becomes nations and religions.
Take right, take left, take blue, take red, take heart, take head, take sharks, take jets, take the comment section from the last election, take the things we write, take our misdirection, take the fear that makes us want to drive them out, and act the same as what we're mad about. Take the Inquisition, think of prohibition, think of shock and awe against Sharia law. Take crusades and hate and mobs and frenzies, blues, eclipse, the crucifixion, ethnic cleansing. Is it only all about the pain and hurt? Also that it never really seems to work, cause the heavier the hand that holds and squeezes, the more you break the thing into a million pieces. And every little spore is gonna grow again. You can call that hell or you can call that sin, but the only revolution is the one within. Till we throw ourselves into the light, we will never win the fight.
I think when I become a really good student of my own story, then I have room for other people's stories. But, they say that we have to love our neighbor as ourselves, but I think equally as true is that we do love our neighbor as ourselves, meaning the things I cannot love or accept in myself, I cannot love or accept in you. If I can love it in myself, then I can love it in you. So if you can't win the fight by fighting against some other group, there's some other thing that has to be faced. And I think the only real fight then is internal. It's how do we sit with our own darkness, our own fear and insecurity. And I think there are lots of ways that you can do that. You know, meditation, prayer, religious practice at its best, therapy, quietness, all of those things allow us to sit in a space where we know that we're a part of the problem and a part of the solution. We're saints and we're sinners, and that's okay. And when I can do that work and I can face myself here, this is the revolution that matters. And when I've done that, I can go out and be a better citizen in the world.
Try to smash that thing down, try to stamp that thing out, try to grab it all and pound it down to 1,000 pieces. But don't be afraid, no, don't be afraid. Just show me all your faith in all the ways you love the faces of the ones who disagree.
That's Cameron Hood, everybody.
And that song is called The Fight.